State Representative Morgan Meyer of Dallas, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. As you know, the House Ways and Means Committee, which you chair, voted out HB 2, your bill to cut property taxes. It was a committee substitute. I wanted to ask you, why is this bill so important? And if you can talk us through some of the changes that were made in the committee substitute.
Sure. So the reason this is important is that myself and pretty much every other representative, Republican or Democrat alike, when we go home, this is the top of mind issue. This is the most important issue that I'm hearing about from my constituents is property tax and property tax relief. It is one of the issues that is bipartisan as it can get. And it's one of the ones that we are going to address this session. And it's one of the ones that, as I said, we are hearing about from our constituents on a daily basis. And HB 2 and HJR 1 do just that. They provide real property tax relief. They provide the largest tax cut in the history, property tax relief in the history of the state of Texas. And we look forward to bringing that back to our constituents.
And so let's talk a little bit about the bill. This would basically lower the cap on appraisals, how much they can go up from 10%, which is what it is now, to 5%. And this is not only for homeowners, this is for every property owner who pays property tax, right? So
that's correct.
Agricultural.
That's correct. And that's part of the bill. So we lower the appraisal cap from 10% to 5% for homeowners. And then we put a 5% appraisal cap on all real property. Currently, right now, there is no appraisal cap to help out that small business owner, to help out those that do not own a home. This actually provides certainty for those small business owners. It allows for them to know, hey, my appraisal in the past has gone up. Literally, we've heard from witnesses that it has gone up 100% in just 1 year. This allows for it only to go up 5%. It provides certainty for these small business owners, and obviously provides homeowners relief by decreasing how much your taxable value can go up by 5%. But that's only part of the bill. The other part of the bill is, and a very important part, is the compression part, and that means we're lowering your taxes. We're putting in $11.2 billion to lower your tax rate, to compress the tax rate down, to provide real property tax relief that for a homeowner of a home of $350,000 is about $1,200 in the first 2 years. But not only that, this bill also does something which we haven't done in over a decade. It increases the state's share of public education funding to over 50%. We have not been there in over a decade. The state is stepping up. We're funding public education. And the other part of it is that we're also reducing what's called recapture, Robin Hood, by $4.5 billion. So this bill is property tax relief, but it's education funding, and it certainly is helping out the business owner as well as the home.
And when you talk about compression and talk about increasing, you're basically talking about the point you just made is, as you reduce the amount of property taxes that pay for public schools, you're increasing other state revenues like sales tax and other revenues to pay for public schools. Is that right?
Well, we're not increasing any taxes. No, we're just
but you're using the state share.
Yes.
The state revenues more than the property tax revenues.
Correct. We're increasing the state's burden. The state, what we should have been doing for forever, Jack, we should increase the state's share of funding of public education. And in HB 2, we do that. We increase it to over 50%.
And so what was the change? And it may have been very minor in the committee substitute from the original.
It just had to do, honestly, Jay, it had to do with making sure that those owners of mobile homes receive the same homestead benefit, the appraisal cap benefit, as other homeowners did.
And one thing I wanted to ask you about, there's been a lot of discussion about, well, how will this help renters? Because if you don't own property, but you rent an apartment, and so many Texans do, how would this help?
So that is the appraisal cap part of it. And so what we're doing is for those folks who own, whether it's an apartment complex or whether it's a home and they rent it out, now their appraisal cap will be at 5%. So those who own the apartment complex or own the home and rent it out, their values have been going up astronomically over the past 3 or 4 years, and they have been passing that on to the renter. But now that they have a certainty with a 5% cap, with their appraisal only going up by that incremental amount, they can then pass along those savings to the renters.
I mean, obviously you can't legislate that, but you
Correct.
think it would have an impact?
I do. I really do. I mean, and just from hearing from folks after we filed HB2, I heard from truly from those who have homes they rent out, those who own apartment complexes. They said, look, we've never had this certainty before. We have never had the certainty of only knowing that it's going to go up by 5%. And so because of that certainty, they are going to be able to pass that on to the renter.
I wanted to ask you, as you know, the state Senate yesterday unanimously passed its version of property tax cuts, and that is increasing the homestead exemption for most homeowners to 70,000 from 40,000 now. And for those 65 and older, it is increasing to 100,000. And then businesses would go from 2,500 to 25,000 for their property exemption. And then also it would cut the business inventory tax by 20%. And as you know, senators have said their plan would be more effective than the House plan. What is your reaction to that?
Well, we like our plan in the House. We do, because it's twofold, and it benefits both business owners and homeowners. First off, we provide much more compression buying down taxes than does the Senate plan by a considerable amount. I don't remember exactly the numbers, but again, ours is 11.2. If I remember correctly, theirs is more, about 5.9 billion in that. And so we provide a great deal more compression. Ours is, when you take HB1 and HB2 together, is about 25 cents of compression. And if I remember correctly, the Senate's is only 17 cents of compression. So we are providing in the House the largest tax cut in the history of the state of Texas. Additionally, as it relates to the homestead exemption, we have done that, and we in the House supported it at the end of last session. But we want to try something new. We want to try something bold, and that's what we're doing in the House, because the issue with just increasing the homestead exemption is that stagnant. And so, as I've said before, when I'm at my son's basketball game, no one is coming up to me and saying, Morgan, we absolutely need an increase in our homestead exemption. Everyone is coming up to me and saying, Morgan, what is going on with my appraisal? What is the issue? Because the problem with the homestead exemption is it's a stagnant number. So if the appraisal, which we all know they do, go up by greater than what the Senate has increased the homestead exemption, then our constituents will see no property tax relief. They will not feel that in their bill, because their bill will still go up. But what we're doing is we are compressing, we're providing the largest tax cut in history, and then we're saying, all right, we're not only going to provide you this tax relief, we're going to make sure, and on a go-forward basis, we're going to slow the growth of your property tax bill with the appraisal cap as it relates to homestead, as it relates to all property. And so that's why we are very confident in the House's version of our bill, and we're very confident in our plan to provide real, lasting property tax relief to our constituents.
And I wanted to ask you, because the Lieutenant Governor and Senator Betancourt and other senators had a news conference early last week, and they were, facing these kinds of questions from reporters. And the Lieutenant Governor said that under the House plan, property taxes could go up because he said it would go against the existing law, which requires an election if cities and counties raise their property tax revenues by more than 3.5%, and school districts raise their property revenues by more than 2.5%. Is that true?
I'm going to respectfully disagree with Lieutenant Governor. This does nothing to affect anything that we did 2 sessions ago as it relates to the 3.5% cap or the 2.5% cap. The local taxing entities are still going to have to go to the voters if they want to go over those rates. This does nothing to affect that at all. And additionally, as I stated, we're not taking any property values off of the books. We are slowing the rate go forward. So those local entities are still going to have to go seek voter approval if they want to go over 3.5% and 2.5%. And this bill does nothing to affect or change that. This bill slows growth forward, and it provides certainty for homeowners and business owners on a go forward basis. And that's what I'm hearing. And that's what all of us are hearing from our constituents, is certainty as it relates to their appraisal.
And I wanted to ask you, as far as the numbers that you gave, the $350,000 home, it's you said about $1,200, over $1,200, maybe closer to $1,300 for 2 years. The Senate version is over $1,500 for most homeowners. So what makes your plan better if their average, their average is on a lower value home of 331,000. So what's the takeaway for people? It's a lot of different numbers. How do you provide certainty that your plan would be better?
Because it provides for future years. And what I mean by that is when we get back to the appraisal cap issue versus the homestead exemption issue, their homestead exemption, again, because it's a stagnant flat number, is going to be swallowed up by appraisal in year one. Ours is going to cap the appraisal. So therefore, we're going to compress it down, but ours is going to be longer lasting and more over into the future because we have the appraisal caps to restrict the growth of the appraisal. So we're lowering your taxes, and then we're saying, all right, we're going to lower your taxes now immediately and on a go forward basis, but we're also going to say we're going to constrain your appraisal growth so everyone is going to actually see this relief on a go forward basis. The homestead exemption is going to be evaporated, gone within a year or two because appraisals are so out of control.
Right. So you're basically saying your plan protects people further out into the future because property values, for the most part, go up, and this way it'll cap those and not be susceptible to just a flat homestead exemption.
Yes, that's correct.
And so, given these differing bills, these are there are two competing bills. And so you and the House are very committed to this. I know Speaker Phelan is very committed to this. And the same side, the Senate and the Lieutenant Governor are very committed to their plan. So how do you see this all shaking out?
Well, we will, as we always have done, get together with the Senate after we pass out HB2 and HJR1. And I know that they've just passed out SB 3, 4, and 5. And we will sit down and we will have a discussion. As the Speaker said, we're not taking anything off the table. Like, we are going to work with the Senate because we believe that providing property tax relief is of utmost importance. So this is the beginning of a discussion with the Senate. We have our plan. We believe and truly believe it is the best path forward, but we will certainly work with the Senate. We're not taking anything off the table to provide real property tax relief to all Texans.
And I did have 2 other questions on the subject, and I really appreciate your time on this. And that is the one point that the Lieutenant Governor and Senator Betancourt were making is that property caps, lowering from 10 to 5%, won't really have an impact on seniors because their properties are capped pretty much. So what do you make of that argument?
Well, this is going to provide real relief to all, whether they are seniors or not seniors, and that is not only the caps. And I appreciate us having a discussion about the caps, but having a discussion about the exemptions. But then we also need to focus again on the compression, and that's going to provide real relief to all Texans. And because our compression, again, and say for the third time, it's the largest tax cut in the history of the state of Texas, all Texans are going to feel that relief. And so this is a bill in its totality that provides all Texans real property tax relief.
Republican State Representative Morgan Meyer of Dallas, thank you so much. I know you got to get to the House floor, so thank you for your time. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it as well.